What up, gang? I hope everything's going well. I just had some tea with a really good friend, but in my experience, these discussions are always better done with a nice cup of black coffee. Also, my really good friend I made kind of nervous because I have this thing where I'm not a fidgety type of person. So like if I'm relaxed and calm, like my body's really still. And so if I have to check my phone or something, I'll just like set my coffee up and I'll just balance it on my knee. And he saw it and he was like, "That makes me uncomfortable, Mike. You should stop doing that."
It's doing well so far.
Huh?
It's going well so far.
I think so, yeah. Parallel. And what?
I noticed you this
What?
I hadn't noticed you balancing the cup.
You didn't notice it was there?
No.
Yeah, I naturally set it down. I've done this before. I've had full conversations with just like a coffee cup on my knee. I don't know why I do the things I do. Yeah, I did that like in college. I'd sit at the desk and I just put this, I think it's because I was on my phone or if I was writing something and the desk was too far away and I got sick of the distance of doing that.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to put this on the desk. I'm just going to pick it back up. So I put it like immediately on my knee. It worked out pretty well. So for this video, I might do a strange thing. There's a idea I made in high school. It's like a small conceptual system philosophy that I made. And I've thought about it for a long time. I've had it in my head for like years. And I've never been one to like share ideas very much, but a while back I shared it with my best friend and I've shared it with some people. And a few weeks ago I shared it with a professor of social philosophy. And he was like, "Well, that's a good idea." And I was like, "Hey, what? Low-key." So that was really interesting and also proper motivation to document it before he steals my idea. So, the Cynicism Footprint. If you can remember back to 2013, 2014, that's when the media, the carbon footprint, got like a lot of media attention. There was the documentary An Inconvenient Truth, and the idea was that humans, through excess usage and through kind of careless behaviors, were creating this thing called carbon, this black pernicious element that was poisoning the world and just making it generally a worse place. And the call to action during that was to reduce your carbon footprint. And the idea behind it was that if every human reduced their carbon footprint just a little bit, the world would be at least that less worse. And so that was all over the place when I was in high school. And it influenced my thinking a lot. Like my mom and I decided that we'd start recycling. We thought, well, you know, if we could recycle a bit and cause sea turtles to choke on less plastic bottles, that sounds like a reasonably good thing. We could give it a try. If it makes the world less worse, why not give it a try? And so it struck my thinking in that way. But in 2013, when I was in high school, my mind kind of drew a parallel, and I made in my head a parallel conceptual system called the Cynicism Footprint. And just for a working definition, cynicism is the general mistrust of others, other people, and the belief that people act in their self-interest and are willing to lie, manipulate, betray. People act in their self-interest and genuinely shouldn't be trusted. So my mind drew a parallel conceptual system, and in my head I formulated the Cynicism Footprint. And in my head I imagined that every time someone lies to someone, manipulates them, or betrays them, it's this action that perpetuates and leads to a higher production of cynicism, this black material that evidently makes the world worse and makes the world and the people within it less trusting and less hopeful, we'll say. And so that was the formulation as a parallel conceptual system to the carbon footprint. And once I had that in my head, like the world around me made a little bit more sense because I think it's fair to say I came from a family with a good amount of pretty hurt people. Previous generations behind me have had a lot of poverty, and there have been a lot of tragedies, a lot of really painful things, and really bad cycles. And also just friends. I feel like I've been really blessed that people and friends are close enough with me that they'll share. They've shared a lot of problems they've had all throughout while I was growing up. People would share with me their problems. And one thing I noticed that of all the social pathologies that I could observe, nearly all of them were produced from one instance or multiple of someone being lied to, manipulated, or betrayed of valuable trust by another person. And one thing I've learned is that not only are those really affecting in the time that they happen, that they stick with people for a long time. And those things can cause, at a base level, a good amount of suffering, being lied to, being betrayed, being manipulated by another person. It can cause a good amount of suffering and pain. It can go a layer further to where people struggle to trust people in the future because they've been hurt so badly. And it can go a layer further where people are so wrecked by something that they decide the world isn't a trustworthy place, and that's how things are. And they become very cynical people, and these cycles perpetuate. So once I had this conceptual system in my head, the Cynicism Footprint, it started to make more sense, and I started to lock down on instances where cynicism, in my head, like the conceptual system, cynicism was produced and perpetuated. And so that's the formulation of my idea, the Cynicism Footprint. I kind of use it as a conceptual system in my head. And with that idea, I made a moral decision that, to the best of my human ability, I would never lie to someone for any reason. And so, again, I'd use it as a conceptual system in my interactions. So if I came into a situation where I could lie to someone, and I saw that I could use them manipulatively for a gain of some sort, I'd always stop and genuinely ask myself, as like a thought experiment, if I were to use this person or lie to them, how much cynicism would it produce? And if I were to do this, how much less likely would they be to trust somebody in the future? And how much more cynical would they become? And how much would that progress? And in situations where I knew that I could lie to, manipulate, or use somebody, and I knew I could get away with it, I'd stop and genuinely ask myself, if I were to use this person and lie to them or manipulate them, if I were to do this, even if they were to remain naive of what I'd done, how much more likely is that to warp my convictions for the future? And how much more cynicism will I then begin to spread before I become an agent of the cynicism which I've come to despise? And so I'd ask myself that genuinely every time. And often, after reasoning with myself and understanding the repercussions, I'd not use the person or tell them the truth. I can't think of the transition. I told myself I could do this off the cuff, but that's not realistic right now.
And you already got 1,000 papers.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the late game right now. I make 3 constructive videos, and then I just have 17 blooper videos, and that'll be my YouTube career. That's proper entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So that's the Cynicism Footprint concept and the moral decision I made with it. As for reasons why I stick with the moral decision, the simple one is because I don't like being lied to. And therefore, because of my beliefs, I don't lie to people. I don't do to people things that I hate myself. But there's a second one, is one thing that I think is the problem of lying. So I've had really deep conversations with people Like, I'm a really big fan of bonfires and sitting by campfires and talking to people. And we'll often have really deep conversations. And I've often got on the topic, or we have often got on the topic of lying. And when we talk about lies that we've told or things that we said, I notice two things. The one thing is people almost always believe lying is wrong, and they hate it when it's done to them. And the second thing is when people are rationalizing a lie, they'll often say things like, the world is corrupt, or that's the way things are. And as true and absolutely spot on as that is, one problem I have with that justification is that it provides no pragmatic solution for the problem that it details, and seemingly a problem that it really understands. Moreover, and this is kind of my personal opinion, but saying the world is corrupt, people lie, that's just the way things are, not only does it provide no pragmatic solution, but in my opinion, it kind of does the opposite. Because not only when you use that as justification, not only does it justify the speaker, but in my opinion, it provides an infinite justification for anyone who wants to use that as a justification. Saying the world is corrupt, therefore this lie is justified, in all honesty, just provides a passed on, passive, kind of lazy endorsement for everyone who comes after you, whether they're a friend or a foe. 3 things I'm not trying to do with this video. 1, I'm not trying to morally grandstand. I'm not saying this is criteria for what constitutes a good person or a bad person. And 2, I'm by no means am I advocating for a perfect person. I think we can all be, I hope we can all be mature enough to know that there's no such thing as that. And the third thing is, it might sound like it, but I'm not advocating that we all just coddle each other, or that we walk through life treating people like they're covered in bubble wrap and they're so fragile. What I'm trying to do simply is give my diagnosis for a problem that I think we all face. Something that we all feel the repercussions of, and something that we all add to. There's a really good quote by G.K. Chesterton. He said, not only are we all in the same boat, but we're all seasick. And I think that's a really good quote because obviously the world has some serious problems to it. And with those in mind, the sufferings of the world, how terrible we can be to each other, I think it's very hard to say what can make this world better. I mean, that can be tackled, but I think it's really difficult. But I think at the very least, I think we all know what can make this world less bad. We all know things that we do and actions that we take, that if we were to simply not do those things, or do them less often, the world would at least be less bad. And so that's where the diagnosis of the cynicism footprint, at least in my internal mechanisms, that's where I've used it to hopefully make the world at least a less bad place. So I've detailed the moral decision I made in high school. I've detailed why I stuck with it to the best of my human ability. And now I just want to quickly give reasons as to why I think the moral decision is worth it. The first one is simply at a base level, I think the world around you becomes a better place when you're simply honest and forthright with people around you. When you decide not to lie, not to create unneeded manipulations, unneeded suffering, the world has much less tension. As I've learned, it's a much more peaceful place. And also, if problems do emerge, which they're always going to emerge, honesty is the only tool you have to genuinely solve a problem and find a mutual resolution. So I think it's best to have honesty at all times, whether you're in tension or in peace. The second one And I'm going to give a preface. This is incredibly... I'm going to give a preface that this is incredibly corny. Like, this is pretty bad. If anyone wants to get a plane ticket to the UK and come smack me for how corny this is, I give you full permission. But the reason is I've seen a lot of beautiful things in this world. I've seen really beautiful landscapes, really pretty woods. I've seen awe-inspiring buildings and some pretty great art. But to this day, I have never seen anything more beautiful than the eyes of someone I could be uncompromisingly honest with. And I've never seen anything more beautiful than the eyes of someone I was willing to put my trust and faith in. Again, that's incredibly corny, but it's really true. There's nothing I've ever seen that's more beautiful than to look in the eyes of someone and just feel solidarity. To feel like there's no mask present, that you just both understand each other. I think that's quite beautiful. And that's why I think it's worth it. So that's the video. I hope I articulated okay. One thing I'm noticing is that YouTubers, when they have to make a concise video, talk a lot faster than I do. I'm much too chill in my speaking thing so far for a YouTube format. But hope I articulated okay. If you have any ideas or anything you want to talk about, put it in the comments down below. And I filmed this for my birthday, and so, oh no. If anyone will allow me to be a shameless YouTuber, for my birthday, if you want, you can like and subscribe to the channel, and that could be my birthday present. Oh, good lord, that's so shameless, but that's how it is. So, y'all have a good day, and I'll just close with the immortal, wise words of Chicago rapper Mick Jenkins, who said, "Drink more water, or you might die." Y'all have a good day. By the way, if anyone tells you that you need a tripod to film things, nah, son. Get yourself a tall box and a TV remote to pop your phone against. That's what Stanley Kubrick did.